Hey guys, for the last 5 months I've been living in the Philippines. So in this video I'm gonna share my honest opinion, my experience, the pros and cons of being an expat here, so you can decide for yourself if Philippines is for you. Let's begin. Hey guys, if you're new here, I'm Julia, and together with my husband JJ, I'm traveling the world and currently living in the Philippines. As a little pre-story, me and my husband JJ, we've been traveling Asia for a while. I think it's our 7th or maybe 8th winter we spent in Asia. We've been living in Thailand, in Malaysia, in India, in Sri Lanka, and this year in Philippines. So I have experience to speak about it, and during this video I maybe compare a little bit with these countries as well. During our stay in the Philippines, we've been living in 2 places. At first we were staying in little place called San Juan in La Union province in the Philippines, in the little touristic surf town. And now we are staying in Manila. These 2 places definitely have different vibe, and honestly I like both and I enjoy both. It's all depends on what you're looking for. Obviously in Manila it's a big city, it's much more opportunities, it's much more food options, much more places to go, much more museums and things to do, but it's lots of people, lots of traffic and all these things. While in a little surf town, it was beautiful location, chilled vibe, relaxing atmosphere, people were so nice and friendly, but it was much less things to do and much less amenities like hospitals and shopping malls and this kind of stuff. Speaking about living in the Philippines, I want to start with pros, and pro number 1 is the beautiful scenery. No doubt the Philippines is one of the most beautiful countries in Southeast Asia and maybe even in the world, having more than 7,000 islands, and each one of them is beautiful and unique. The nature here is amazing. There are islands with white sandy beaches and blue waters, as well as mountains and volcanoes with their lush greeneries. The next pro is that everyone speaks English, and by everyone I mean everyone, even the little kids. It's really convenient. Maybe in some faraway provinces and villages not everyone speaks, but in majority touristic places and big cities most of the people will speak English. And not only speak English, like all advertisements, all movies and transportation will be in English, all the road signs and advertisement you see around, as well as in the metro you can get information in English. It will be written and announced in English, as well as all the products in the shops. You can read the names, the ingredients, and it's really convenient. Because in some countries, when you are in the shop, all the products are in the local language, so sometimes you cannot even understand what is it without your Google Translator. The next pro is relatively low cost of living. Of course, it all depends on what you want, because you can live in really low budget or you can spend a lot of money. Of course, it all depends on where you stay and how comfortable you want to live, but still, I think it's pretty affordable. For example, now we're staying in Manila with a beautiful condo where I'm sitting now, with a pool, gym access and a shopping mall on the first floors, and we are paying around $500 a month. And I want to mention that we are renting this place just for 2 months. I'm sure if you have a year contract, you can get much better price. Eating out is pretty cheap as well, shopping is pretty cheap, so it is really affordable country for living. For the groceries, we normally spend around 2,000 to 2,500 pesos per week buying meat, vegetables and other stuff. For the restaurants, you can expect paying as low as 600 pesos per 2 people in some local eatery, and maybe around 1,000 pesos per 2 people in better restaurant. Transportation is pretty affordable. There are jeepneys which are super cheap, like 15 pesos per ride. There are tricycles which can cost as low as 100 pesos per ride. The taxis are really good, especially in the big city as Manila. There is a Grab taxi which can cost you starting from 150 pesos for like 20 minutes ride, and it's great air-conditioned cars. Metro is pretty cheap as well. Expect paying something like 15, 20, 25 pesos for several stations. And the next pro, I'm gonna mention a visa because it's relatively easy to get and it's pretty long as well. For most nationalities, you don't even need a visa. You just arrive to the Philippines and you get 1 month free. After that 1 month, you can get a visa waiver for another month, and you can actually get it online, which is pretty convenient. And after that, you can easily extend your visa. I think you can extend it for 1, 2, or 6 months. And like this, extending your visa, you can stay up to 3 years in the country. And then when you extend your 3 years, you can just leave the country for like few days trip, come back and start this process from zero. So it's pretty easy. It is costly though. I cannot tell you the exact cost because it seems like it's different from person to person. It depends on your nationality. It also depends on where you are staying. It seems like in different provinces, prices are a bit different. But in my experience, we were paying something like $35, $40 for 1 month visa extension. This is just for you to understand how much approximately it's gonna cost. Yours might cost more or less. The next pro is the warm climate all year round. That can be something great if you like tropical weather and you don't like cold. But the rain season is not very pleasant time because it's gonna rain a lot. The next pro is welcoming and hospitable culture towards foreigners. As a foreigner here, I've been feeling really safe, and all people are so friendly and nice to us. That was just a great experience. And the next pro is lots of supermarkets and shopping malls. Honestly, I never saw as many shopping malls as they have here in the Philippines. But it's actually a good thing for me because living last year in India, they hardly have any supermarkets. All shoppings you do in the small little locally shops, which is really uncomfortable for me, who get used to come to one huge supermarket and buy everything I need. So I did struggle last year in India, where I had to go, if I want to get meat, I need to go to meat shop. If I want to get bread, I need to go to a bakery. If I want to vegetables, I go to the market. And all this is just shopping becomes so much more difficult. And it's like you can spend a half of the day just going from shop to shop and paying everywhere. It's so uncomfortable. Here there is no problem. There are lots of big huge chains with great quality and good prices, and they're everywhere, even in some islands. Usually there is at least one big supermarket you can find. And now let's talk about cons. And number one is humidity and heat. I know I mentioned the warm weather in a pros for the people who love hot weather like me, but for many people it will be hard to stay this tropical climate because it does get really hot and humid. So maybe before moving here, just come here for holidays and try to feel it yourself. How you are dealing with it, are you okay with it or not, and then you can make a decision. And con number two is kind of connected with con number one. Because it's so hot and humid, there are lots of insects here, and if there is something you are not comfortable with, it's also something you need to think about. Of course, there are these huge cockroaches, a lot of them. There are spiders, there are some other flying insects and everything, and yeah, there are a lot of them. Not only in the provinces, in the big cities as well. The con number three, please don't be offended Filipino people who are watching, but for me it's Filipino food. Unfortunately, I didn't like it, neither me or my husband. We couldn't find anything other than salt chicken. Yeah, that's the only thing we like. The problem is the meat here. They use really fatty parts of meat, and even chicken. They eat things like chicken asses or like chicken boiled skin, and like lots of fat pieces. And there is something I don't really eat. It might be just me, but I personally, I don't like fat. Usually if it's like little piece of fat in the meat, I already cut it away. And most of Filipino food are kind of saucy, and you cannot really understand because the pieces are covered in sauce. Is it meat? Is it fat? What is it? So personally, I found it such a headache when I order food to like keep trying to understand what is it, and not just chewing something and like feeling this not nice flavor inside me. So I just stopped eating the Filipino food, unfortunately, because of that. The flavors are very nice though. So for me, it's just this lots of fat is a minus. The next minus is traffic, especially in the major cities. It can get really intense, and you can waste lots of time staying in the traffic. But you can use metro. The next con is infrastructure issues. Although this problem is not really everywhere, but in some provinces or places there will be lots of power cuts. The internet is not working perfectly everywhere, and sometimes when you get a mobile data, it doesn't work everywhere in the Philippines. It might work in certain islands and provinces, and in some it couldn't work. So there is something you need to consider maybe before you move, to see which provider is working good in that area. The sidewalks, it's also something which is not very developed in most of the places, and when we were staying in San Juan, La Union, it was hardly any sidewalk, so most of the time you had to just walk in the road, which was a bit scary, especially at night, because it was not much light around, so you just hope that nobody will drive over you. The next con is bureaucracy. If you have to deal with it, it's lots of headache. The great news is that visa you can actually get online, so you don't need to deal with it, but there are still some things you need to deal with. Like for example, to get a SIM card, they will ask you so many information, all the passports and address and everything. And the weird thing as well, they want some local person with a local number, where you're supposed to know this person because you are a foreigner, obviously. We had it actually with my husband, a problem when we just arrived. We were getting our smart SIM card, and they ask for some second number to fill it up. Obviously we didn't have anyone's number, so the person in the airport, he just put his number, and then when I download the app, they ask me this second number, and they said like we're gonna like send a code there. So but obviously I didn't know this person, I didn't know this number, so I couldn't use the smart app, which is like really weird system. But that's something about smart, maybe not necessarily about the Philippines. The next con is natural disasters, because the Philippines is actually prone to typhoons, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. That might be a bit scary living here, especially now staying in Manila on the 26th floor. If something happened like earthquake or something, I'm actually really worried about it, but hopefully nothing will happen. And yeah, typhoons is not a rare thing, especially in a rainy season. So if you're gonna stay here all year round, that's something you definitely need to keep in mind. The next con is limited entertaining options, but obviously it depends on where you are staying. If you are staying in a major cities like Manila or Cebu, you will have plenty of things to do, and it also will be some expats community where you can make some kind of meetups and do something together. But if you're staying in smaller places, it might be much quieter and much less things to do. Next con is pollution, especially in a major city. If you are sensitive to the air quality, you might feel it in the big cities, because there is lots of pollution in the air, there is lots of traffic, lots of rubbish, so yeah, you might feel it. The next con is pretty expensive healthcare. We did have few incidents while we were staying in the Philippines. Once we actually get to the training hospital, that if you don't know what is it, training hospital is where the medical students train, but there's also like normal doctors there as well, so it's not like only students. So how it works, usually you come in with your problem, and at first the main doctor check you up, and then some little task they give to the students. And this hospital was actually great. We've been in San Fernando in La Union province. It was pretty good, really nice students there. They were genuinely trying to help and they were really attentive, and was costing so cheap. I remember we spent, I think, like 300 pesos or something like that, which is really good. And then the second time we had to go to the hospital in Manila, and here was pretty expensive. Like just the doctor consultation, I think it starts from 1,000 pesos, and then if you need something more difficult, it costs a lot as well. Luckily, we didn't really need anything more than just a consultation, but we get some prices. Some blood tests were like 4,000 of pesos. So yeah, maybe you need to get insurance if you have some problems and you're gonna need to go to hospitals like a bit more often than once a year. Yeah, maybe you're gonna need a medical insurance or something like that. The last con is not that affordable prices for traveling around the Philippines. Although the prices are pretty good and you might find like really good deals on domestic flights, the prices here are still a bit more expensive. We've been, for example, we had to cancel our trip to Palawan and Boracay because I calculated that like one week of the trip traveling around Palawan would have cost us around 700 euros for both of us, which I think is a lot. I think you can go to different country for that amount of money, including the flights and everything. I remember in this Palawan, just one ferry which goes from, I think, El Nido to Coron was just 500 euros one way, and we needed to do it twice, and we had two people, so just 200 euros we're supposed to go to this ferry. And the thing is that there is no other way to get from El Nido to Coron. There is a flight, but flights are even more expensive because it's some kind of like private airline. So, and same with the hotels. If you want something kind of decent as well, you need to pay a lot of money for it. And the boat tours, island hopping tours, and this kind of stuff, they're also pretty expensive, starting from like 1,500 pesos, and it's not even private tours. So yeah, it is a bit costly. So that's my pros and cons about living in the Philippines as an expat. I hope you find this video helpful and you can make your decision now.